Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Devin Brossard, and this talk, The Walking Dead, Your Family's Guide for Surviving the Apocalypse, is really geared towards three people. The person or persons, number one, is the parents of young kids that are like the homeschooling people, the earthy, grounded, granola, don't poison my kids, don't put poison on my kids and my kids around my kids. Parents, that's my kind of people. Okay. And number two is the parents of kids that maybe they're not young kids, but they're still youngish, and they're frustrated. They're frustrated with the current systems as healthcare, with education, with food, and they're just looking for some kind of information that's going to make sense in what seems nonsensical. And then group number three is people that just love zombie movies, which again, that's actually all three of these groups of people is like, they're my people. So we're gonna jump right into it because this idea of The Walking Dead. Do you ever feel like you are just like getting through the day, just day in, day out, just not able to really give more of yourself because you are just spent and like almost like you are the Walking Dead? Or do you find yourself in this situation where it's like you feel like you are the survivor and like everyone else is the Walking Dead and they're kind of coming at you, and it's like this exhausting, frustrating, like reactive point in life where it's like you don't know when it's going to come, and all of a sudden now there's intensity and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like this never ending cycle. Well, if you fit into either of those feelings, I know exactly how you feel. My wife and I, Chelsea, decided to do three with all three of our kids, home births, natural. And what we got to hear from people, oh, that's not safe, not safe. Oh, and then the stories, oh, if I wasn't in the hospital, my kid would have died. So, so better think about that. We also decided to allow our kids to develop natural immune systems and not inject them with chemicals when they're healthy born babies. And again, what we heard from people all around us, our friends, our family members, colleagues, other health professionals, oh, that's just irresponsible. And they're going to die, and then they're going to kill other people's kids. And, gosh, I had these friends and, back in my day, and, oh, that was a real big deal. And, if you knew the better, you would know, kind of talking down to us as if we were ignorant to the fact that we weren't knowledgeable on what our decision was on how we chose to raise our kids. And then and then during the pandemic, we decided that we were going to follow Christ's example. And so my clinic in Washington State, we didn't mask up or use vaccinations in order to protect ourselves. We just stayed healthy, and we took care of our patients. And after over 100,000 visits, we look back on this experience, and the decisions we made felt like we were in this apocalypse of time where like all these people are coming at us like zombies, because they said they didn't want us to die, but really what they wanted us to be is less alive, right? To do the things that they were doing, almost like like a zombie wanting to convert us to being part of their herd. And after 4 years of dealing with poor pandemic ideas that led to worse health, we can see that our choices were true, and that the ultimate message of this entire video is that parents, like whatever you think is right, whatever your gut's telling you, you gotta listen to that. And so as we move forward, it's easy to look at people that are following the medical system and they're getting the 19th COVID booster shot, or they're still wearing masks, and it's easy to think about them as like, they're so just like just a mindless zombie. But the simple truth is we are all within this Walking Dead kind of spectrum. I found myself during the stress of the pandemic, as I was being harassed and investigated by multiple government agencies, found myself isolated and angry. And really, my addiction that I chose was running. I would run, 8 to 16 miles a day to work through the stress. But it was an addiction, and it was not healthy. My blood pressure had gotten out of control. My heart rate variability was bad. And as a result, my wife was stressed. She was exhausted. She was tight. She was no better status than those that were masked up and using vaccinations to protect themselves. They were chemically poisoning themselves, and through the stress of our life, we were poisoning ourselves with that stress, and we found ourselves in the same exact place. And even looking at our kids, they just started to become emotional, like more stuck, not able to bounce back, and just shutting down more. And so we had to take a dramatic shift in our life because, I didn't want my kids to be stuck in this Walking Dead status. I wanted them to be happy. I wanted them to be energized, and I wanted them to be aligned in their value systems, convictions on what God put in their heart. And I wanted them to have a lightness about them, right? Not feel like, oh, I'm dealing with these heavy things all the time. That becomes exhausting. And so if you find yourself in these status of recognizing, like, either A, you're fighting the Walking Dead all the time, or you are a part of that Walking Dead, or both, um, by the end of this video, you're going to understand the neurological root causes of that Walking Dead status. And more importantly, have a plan to be happy again, feel energized again, be aligned in your values and belief systems, and then feel lightness again through a basic understanding. And that's where really the idea came with this talk, is like start to gear people's minds to understanding that either you are fully dead or you are fully alive. And this gray zone in the middle is important to differentiate, because people care about us, and that's why they recommend these things that maybe don't go with our values or belief systems, the vaccines, the processed food, or the chemicals, and they care. So it's just a matter of like understanding neurologically where they're at, so then we can help them as well without feeling like we're frustrated, fighting all the time. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of fighting people. I'm tired of arguing with people. I'm tired of having these pointless debates that don't go anywhere. And so at the end, again, of this, the goal is to equip you with knowledge, information, and peace to move towards being happy, energized, aligned, and light. So let's break it down. It's super simple. How to survive the apocalypse. Just 2 steps. First step, we got down. Don't die. And, that was like the whole pandemic, right? Just we're gonna do the same for 2 weeks so we don't die, and 2 weeks turned into 2 years, and at the root of everything was like, don't die. So we got that one down, and we're gonna dive into that a little bit. But the number 2, this is the important one, and I can reference every single zombie movie out there. It's like, once you figure out how to take out the Walking Dead, the game shifts from running, reacting, hiding, being scared, to like, now we're taking control back. And so we're going to dive into that also, and equip you with the tools to be able to take out the Walking Dead. So step 1, don't die more. Okay. So fully dead, when someone's brain no longer produces electricity, what happens in the body is they develop a status of what's called rigor mortis. So most people know that when you die, your body gets very stiff, but very few people know the mechanism behind that. So the mechanism of rigor mortis is every single muscle in your body flexes, which seems counterintuitive, right? So think of flexing as like that requires energy, but actually doesn't. What requires energy or electricity is relaxing, because relaxation is where adaptation occurs. So think of a workout. You do exercise, you tear your muscles up, bicep curls, whatever it is. And then when you heal, when you sleep, then the body then converts that stress into strength. It requires a high level of electricity when you go through the process of relaxation. And then you're very, very sore afterwards as you're then developing strength. So when a person dies and their brain is no longer sending electricity to the body, it no longer has the electricity or the energy in order to relax or maintain a relaxed state. So everything then tightens up. So in essence, if you just do a quick check on yourself, like pause the video, lay down in a neutral position, and then just feel parts of your body. Do you have parts of your body that do not relax? Because that is what's called an active status of rigor mortis. That is part of your body that is unable to heal, meaning it is slowly dying. And you can measure this with surface electromyography and other instrumentation. But really, you can. I mean, it doesn't take this advanced tools. I mean, have someone lay down and touch their calves, touch their neck, touch their traps, touch their pecs, touch their back, and you can feel where their body is unable to relax. In essence, it's developing death. And so what does that look like? What do we call it? We call it, oh, I'm just getting tired. Oh, I'm just losing my flexibility as I get older. We all know that it's the case. Ha ha ha. Right. But really, what we're talking about in a very fundamental level is that the body's unable to maintain and heal collagen fibers, and it replaces collagen with scar tissue. And, and if you can understand this process, you can understand every single disease process known to man. Every disease process is simply the inability for the brain to relax and heal part of the body. And so, really, the goal is to don't die more, right? You already kind of can feel these parts of your body that are dying, and you understand that natural progression is what leads to this walking dead. So the question is, what causes this? I mean, it would not be a, a apocalypse talk without bringing up sin. But I'm going to do something bold. Okay, I'm gonna use the word sin in an actually helpful term, because most churchy people, they use the word sin as, oh gosh, you got the sin. Well, we all have it, so you better believe in Jesus so you can go to heaven. But you still slowly die, and there's not really much you can do with it other than just know that you're a sinful human being. See, that's not really helpful to me. For me, like, I wanted to understand sin and how it directly actually disconnects our life. So let's break it down in a little bit more usable acronym. Sin starts with an S, which stands for synthetic. So synthetic, anything synthetic is what's creating this disconnect in our brain to our body. Because really, any part where our body cannot relax, it's because the brain can't get a signal to that part of the body to heal it. So synthetic environments have this effect because our nervous system, our perfectly designed brain, spinal cord, nerves, autonomic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze response, rest, digest, develop, heal response, is based on 300,000 years of living in nature. It's honed to that. It's perfectly developed for that environment. So, and just like when you go into a new situation, a new room, a new house, go visit somewhere new, a new city, how there's this awareness, this electrical, like, oh my God, I don't know about this place. It's kind of like a little bit on edge. In essence, anytime you're outside of nature, you're in this heightened awareness state, which is creating an overload for our system. And very similar to taking an animal out of the wild and putting him into a zoo. Within 6 months, the zoo animals develop mental illness because of the same effect. And look around, right? Take a wild animal, put them in a zoo with concrete floors, artificial walls, artificial lights. What are we in all day long? This synthetic environment taxes our system, disconnects our system. Number two, immobility. And this one, we could talk on a lot of points. We could talk on the a neck getting stuck in the birthing process. Immobility then directly affects the vagus nerve, which then inhibits the baby's ability to calm itself down, leading to colic. But the most prevalent example of immobility is sitting on technology. And again, so why is this? Because they have now done so many studies before the pandemic. I mean, in chiropractic continuing education, all we learned about was sitting's the new smoking. Have you heard that? Sitting's the new smoking. Don't sit unless there's a unstoppable virus that doesn't kill healthy people and doesn't even give you symptoms if you're healthy. Then sit inside all day long, right? It was almost confusing, but they stopped that messaging of sitting's the new smoking when they recommended sitting for extended periods of time as a preventative measure of keeping people healthy. And I could see where why they dropped that, because it's conflicting, it's confusing to the public. But sitting has been now shown that hours of increased sitting decrease our longevity and increase our risk of disease and death of all types. Okay, I'll say that again. More sitting equals more disease and death directly, with regardless of exercise. And in fact, you can see put a kid in a chair. Within 5 minutes, they're revved up, and within 20 minutes, their ability to learn decreases dramatically. Immobility directly disconnects our brain from our body. And then number three is negativity. And negativity, this one goes back to that 300,000-year-old nervous system. We would need to rely on the people around us to keep us safe from predators. So if we perceive that we are not safe by our tribe, then our nervous system says, you need to be on guard. So because these people aren't going to take care of you because they're negative and you haven't resolved your thing. And so that then disconnects our brain to the body. And so what this causes is, again, think of our nervous system as an electrical system. Brain produces power, sends and receives signals up and down our spine, and our spine acts like a neurospinal circuit breaker. So very similar to how this building is perfectly designed, our nervous system is perfectly designed. And if there is an increase in electrical load on our system, Plug in 50 things right over there, and it's going to blow the circuit breaker. It's not because the circuit breaker is bad. It's actually the circuit breaker is doing its job. It's just that if there's an increased load, it's going to pop it. And that's exactly what the misalignment within the spine is. It's a blown circuit breaker. And this is the thing where chiropractors talk about, okay, you're out of alignment. We're going to put this back into alignment. But really, all they're talking about is you've got a blown circuit breaker, and we're going to reset the circuit breaker. Because once that circuit breaker is blown, now that brain is not talking to the body. And that's where that walking dead status starts from. That what's called dyskinesis, or unable to relax. And then the body slowly dying at that point. And again, now every health condition makes a lot of sense. If it happens in the upper neck, what do you have? Chronic infections, ear infections, chronic sinus drainage issues. If it happens in the upper back, what do you have? You have asthma, chronic lung conditions, heart conditions. Happens in the low back, you're going to have digestive issues, reproductive system issues, issues with the legs. Depending on where the circuit breaker is blown, that's going to directly affect whatever those nerves did control. And then this status happens as our body is disconnecting, as these circuit breakers are blowing. Our brain, again, is activated by 90% movement of the spine. So as that circuit breaker blows, that area is no longer moving correctly. So what happens is the brain goes into a static status of fight or flight. And so we think of like the zombies as being these brain dead beings, but actually they're just brain dimmed, because the amygdala, the fight or flight part of the brain, is super, super strong. So and it is, I mean, it is on protection mode because your body's already dying. It knows your body's dying. And it's like, well, everything's dying, but I'm going to be on guard so nothing kills us. So this amygdala becomes hyperactive all the time. But then when that happens, the rest of the brain becomes dimmed, because that's the survival part of the brain, and it's going to ensure that we are on guard. And that's why people, the Walking Dead, they have no peace, right? They just kind of meander through life, but no real peace. And if you've ever gotten into an argument with somebody and you said, like, you didn't listen to me, and then they're like, I listened, you just never said that. It's because the temporal lobes and the hippocampus both shut down, and the temporal lobes process auditory information. So if you're saying somebody, especially when you're in an emotional status, the odds of them hearing and processing the information is pretty low. Not to mention the hippocampus, which stores memory, is also downregulated. So that's also low. So this is oftentimes where spouses will be arguing with each other, and there's a lot of back and forth. You didn't say that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. No, you didn't. And it's simply a dimmed hippocampus and temporal lobe. Same with kids. Like, I told you to do this. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. Argument again. And it's it's not that they're a liar. It's that they simply don't remember and they never heard it in the first place. And then the cerebellum drops down, which then is the body awareness, which is why kids then develop these proprioceptive issues where their coordination's off, their balance is off, and then these kids get these labels, right? Oh, they're just not good at sports. But really, it's not that. It's just that they're dimmed in the cerebellum, which is also why countless studies have shown with chiropractic care the increase in hand-eye coordination, increase in reacting time, increase in sports performance across the boards, because it activates that cerebellum. But when it's dimmed, it's down-regulated. And then the substantia nigra, that is the no joy. And then the vagus nerve is also dimmed. The vagus nerve is the calming nerve. So with technology use, that synthetic stimulation, that pretty much produces artificial dopamine, which is in essence the same as a drug addiction, right? You take drugs and your body doesn't produce them naturally anymore. And then you need more drugs. And now everything that is synthetic in our diet, in our environment, that makes us feel good for a moment is in essence an addiction that is shutting down the substantia nigra. And then the vagus nerve, which kind of already talked about with the baby's neck getting jammed, that's the nerve that allows you to calm down. So with a birth trauma, a baby whose neck gets jammed on the way out, now that baby is now called a colicky baby, because they never feel calm. You feed them, they don't feel calm. You change them, they don't feel calm. They barely sleep, they're constipated. And which is why, again, with a chiropractor, when they bring babies into chiropractors, colicky, you reset that circuit breaker in the neck, and they just immediately go to sleep and just poop instantly. But this is where the zombie comes in. And so if you find yourself looking at your kid and be like, what is wrong with you? Oh my gosh, it's just still zombie. It's they're just brain dimmed. They just have this decreased activation, all these higher functionings, especially and the prefrontal cortex, which we'll go into more detail in a later slide. But the question that people have is, well, so how did they get this way? Well, it's over time. And there's a book that's came out called The Least of Us, and it talks about how these overactivation of the amygdala starts very young. I mean, it starts with the foods we eat, but it also starts with stress levels in mom when she's pregnant. It starts to develop the amygdala. There's a 76% correlation with birth trauma to kid developing ADHD, overactivation of the amygdala. It's neurosensory processing orders, same thing, overactivation of the amygdala. And then that kid that has this cortisol high stress and then is born with birth trauma and then is developing, told to sit in a chair when they turn into a kid, and then they're stuck inside and they're having to look down, and now they have phones now, and those kids then turn into young adults that then are these walking dead. And this is the way they've been their entire life. So got to take them out. You got to take these zombies out. So here's what you do. You hit them in the head. Okay. Hit them right there. And what I'm talking about is lighting up the prefrontal cortex, because if the amygdala is the gas pedal part of our nervous system that keeps us in that zombie mode, keeps us meandering forward, going with the herd, then the prefrontal cortex is the brake pedal. And so you can say, okay, well, let's work it the other way of don't stimulate the amygdala. Yeah, good luck. Um, or what you can do is light up the prefrontal cortex. And this is also known as the God center of the brain. So look, if you look over the list, empathy, insight, response, flexibility, emotional regulation, body regulation, morality, intuition. These are like all the Jesus characteristics, which I think is why they refer to this as, again, the God center of the brain. It's the front of the brain. It's also why I think when the Catholics, they did the whole Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, that's because we're made in the Father's image, and they point to the head. And so we want to light up, or stimulate the prefrontal cortex, which then directly downregulates the amygdala. And here's the great thing, is that when you do that, the prefrontal cortex will actually match the strength of amygdala. So we have these walking zombies, these walking dead that have these humongous amygdalas, but that means the potential for these kids to be advanced by an advanced prefrontal cortex, more loving, more kind, more empathetic, is unlimited. Just wrap your mind around that for just a minute. So to engage the prefrontal cortex, that's the question people have. Well, how do I do it? Well, it's simple. All you got to do is eliminate the 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day that was shown in a Harvard study, 75% of them negative. So just 90% repeating, just get rid of those. And then you can quit every artificial food, technology, addiction, just stop doing that cold turkey. I found that doing yoga 2 hours a day, that'll do it. And then again, surround yourself with fully alive people. That helps, because we naturally become the 5 people that we spend our time with. And then if you run 6 to 10 miles per day, that'll increase the energy that your brain produces. And this is the second variable of bringing the walking dead back to life, is like increasing the amount of power that our brain creates. And there's only one way to do that, and that is through cardiovascular activity, increasing heart rate for 30 to 90 minutes a day, 3 to 6 days a week. And that's the reason, again, why that exercise decreases the risk of disease of all types. It's not because exercise is quote unquote good for you. It's because it increases the power that our brain produces, so that the signals to our body are then stronger. So that when we don't have as much dis-ease and dysfunction, because our brain can heal ourselves. That's what it's supposed to be. And then, of course, limit all the walking dead, and then eat all raw and organic food. Easy peasy. But like I said, yeah, good luck, right? And this is, as I was a fitness trainer, I would work on this side of things with people. And I can tell you pretty close to 100% of people would never stick to it, because the amygdala, that part of the brain, is so strong. You're trying to play catch up with prefrontal cortex, but the amygdala is fighting us the entire time. And so it's pretty close to impossible, which gives us an indicator of why our health stats are the way they are in the United States with children and young adults, and now with adults dying much earlier for the first time in the history of our country. Or you can do all those things and then ultimately fail and then feel frustrated and then blame yourself. So that's what people do. Well, I knew what to do, I just didn't do it. I don't have the willpower, right? And it's not that people don't have the willpower. It's that their amygdala is running the show. The emotional reactive part of the brain, the zombie part of the brain, is calling the shots. You can't out willpower that sucker. It is strong. But you can reset the circuit breakers. And really, that's what a chiropractic adjustment is. It's simply resetting the circuit breakers where they're blown, knowing that they will blow immediately again. All right. There's still 1,000 things plugged into our system. The sin again in our life is so much that don't confuse yourself. Like there's no fixing this. And the only way to fix this is to do what I did, which is basically walk away from everything and go live in the jungles of the Dominican Republic for a year with your family. That'll do it. Go live in the jungle and you get rid of the sin pretty quick. But that's not really an option for most people. So when you reset the circuit breakers, it stimulates the prefrontal cortex by 25% for 20 minutes, creating rapid changes within the brain. Now, when you do that multiple times a day, it quiets the brain down because, again, prefrontal cortex, that's that peace center of the brain, the certainty center of the brain, the joy center of the brain. And that prefrontal cortex then sends information down the vagus nerve, which then calms the body down. And this is a study we did with multiple chiropractic adjustments per day. And you can see all the squiggly lines in those circles. If you want to pause it, you can see as the day went on, all those lines started to reduce, literally quiets the brain into focus and healing. And this is what you see if you're wondering where the spectrum is. And again, this is for information and education and empowerment, because the brain dimmed Walking Dead, they're up in this upper part, this freeze, fight, flight process. And most, I would go ahead and with observation with people I've interacted with, most people are in that freeze area. So now look at this, the scale, how as they're getting their circuit breakers reset and the prefrontal cortex becomes engaged, then they're going to drop down into the fight or flight response. So this is super common with, again, our clinic is, I'm a pediatric expert and take care of a lot of neural processing disorders, so a lot of sensory processing disorders, kids that are shut down, and then all of a sudden they start to become more reactive, and that's a good thing. Think of it as your brain starting to make developmental jumps. So when a baby goes from sitting to standing, they get super fussy right before they make that jump. And they go from standing to walking, they get super fussy. And the same thing happens as the body is healing, as the brain is healing and moving down towards that, what I call the lit up state, where everything is light, where you then are the light to other people. Do you know these people? You've seen them? Where it's like they are just light. That is a balanced brain. That is a lit up brain away from the fight or flight response. And what happens naturally, and again, this is a clinic, I have had multiple doctors working for my clinic. I have taken care of hundreds of thousands of visits. And what we see naturally when someone begins getting chiropractic care, get their circuit breakers reset, is there's a natural decrease in those negative thoughts. They naturally choose to just quit whatever the food or technology or junk. I mean, we have people that have been on morphine or been on opioids or meth that have just decided, like, yeah, I'm done with that now. It's the most remarkable thing. Addicts that have been addicts for years, all of a sudden, just no shame, no judgment, no doing a program, right? They just do because they don't need the coping mechanism anymore. And then naturally they have more energy, so then they work out. And then when they're working out, they then surround themselves with people that work out, and then they develop this core group of people that are more healthy and play more. And then naturally the Walking Dead around them start to then come back to life as well. And here's the thing, as a parent, that is silly but it means the most, is the kids just eat healthier food now, because that amygdala is the addiction center of the brain, looking for that instant gratification. So when that's now shut down, now they crave what their body needs, which is healthier food. So the only solution that I found, since the whole doing all the things to get the prefrontal cortex engaged is pretty much impossible for everybody, is just get lit up often. Get your circuit breakers reset often. I'm talking multiple times per day. The brain turns on about 20 minutes, and that allows us to handle more of an electrical load on our system. You can handle more of a load. You're not so taxed. You come back alive. You have more energy. So there's a couple options here. The option that I took, I went to chiropractic college. I went to school for 8 years, about a $250,000 investment. Or you can go to a chiropractic clinic, and this works also, and that'll be whatever your copay is, or like $55 to $75, depending on the office, per visit. And you can see that gets a little bit more expensive, a little trickier because, if you're going multiple times a day, that's $55 per time. And so then what ends up happening, and what happened in my own clinic, is that people really could not afford the amount of care that they needed. So they would say, well, I can come in 3 times a week or 2 times a week or 1 time a week, and they would get minimal benefit, but benefit. They would start to heal, but really not to the point where they were lit up. They were to the point where they're like, okay, now I'm less suffering. And really what I came to the conclusion was, and this was frustrating for me because I'm like, I see that people are suffering. I see this Walking Dead status happen with entire families. And I can see how they, the insurance pays for sickness, addiction, um, surgeries, but they don't pay for health, and they have to have insurance. And I just realized it's impossible. It's impossible to bring people back from the Walking Dead with this existing model. And so I realized I had to walk away from this model, because this model is no longer adequate. And it all comes down to this sign right here. You see, when my wife and I decided to not wear masks during the pandemic in the clinic, and to start and decided to honor people would have negative health consequences for wearing masks, and and take care of people and take care of patients, and and be a light for those people. We did it because we believe that's what Jesus would have done, because Jesus' example was that he healed by hand, and he did not show fear in the sign of illness. And so we held ourselves to the standard. And I went through 4 years of investigation to see if this was a dangerous road that we went on. Did we endanger the public? And sure enough, hundreds of thousands of visits, not a single transmission of COVID, not a single death from COVID within our patients, not a single hospitalization from those that we took care of actively, and not a single person with chronic or disabling COVID. 100%. And yet, I was still charged with unprofessional and immoral conduct. And I realized that's because that medicine is no longer a profession. It is operating as a church. And the church of medicine decides that something is the right thing to do, and then its followers simply believe in it. I believe in the science. I trust in the science. And even if that science showed to not be accurate or not be true. And so this symbol right here is actually the original symbol for Christ. What it If you sound it out, it's 2 Greek letters. It's the chi and the rho. So what we did is we opened an international healing ministry, a church called Symmetry Chiropractic Mission Centers, because if chiro was the first name for Christ, then people that practice healing by hands would be called chiropractors. And so with this church model, what we've now taken on a mission of lighting up the world one well-adjusted family at a time. And how we measure that is the basic premises of a fully functioning nervous system. And with people that struggle with sensory processing disorders, is really the goal is to calm their core so they can face the storm, whatever the storm is. And when you move the spine, you then can ease the mind. And then really, we live in a world now where we're so toxic. Everything is so toxic. Our food, everything around us, again, it's impossible to avoid it. So really the goal is to be able to thrive through those toxins so they don't continue to go back to the step one, which is don't die more, and then simply restore health through chiropractic care, hands-on healing. So this chiropractic mission centers that we created is solution number one. And in the chiropractic mission centers, what we do is we take families and we show them how to heal by hand. And then we made it affordable for all families. A membership for an adult is $40 a week, and then kids are free. So then one solution is to become a member of a local mission center where you can come in, you can get your circuit breakers reset, and then learn how to reset your family member circuit breakers, and then be able to do it at home often. And these are year-long memberships, because by the end of the year, the goal is that person will now know how to take care of their family, and their family will know how to take care of them, and they'll never have to pay to go to a chiropractor again. Because as of right now, every single person in the United States knows how to be a medical doctor. They know if you have an infection, you take antibiotics. They know if you have pain, you take a pain reliever. They know if you have a fever, then you take a fever reducer. Everyone knows how to be a medical doctor, and that is how simple medical doctors' jobs are. So why not have every single person, every single family know how to heal by hand? Problem is with this one, it is location dependent. And so one of the things that we offer the people that are part of the memberships within our chiropractic mission centers is information to then allow them to take more control of their health. And so this is our ebook and audiobook that's part of the membership package of members of the Symmetry Chiropractic Mission Centers. And it is a rebel's guide to post-pandemic health revolution. It's full of neuro hacks, things that you can do day to day in order to optimize that vagus nerve and that prefrontal cortex activation. Number 2 is the fully compliant seminar. I put this seminar for doctors of chiropractic because, again, I made it all the way through the pandemic because I actually followed the law. The law in the United States says that no one can make you do something if it negatively impacts your health. It directly violates your constitutional right. So we quantified how the mandates were negatively impacting our patients' health. We quantified how vaccines then negatively impact our patients' health, and we advocated for it. And I taught other doctors how to do the same. So I include this for our members so they can understand their legal rights as far as a United States constitutional citizen, so that when someone is then telling you what you have to do, you can have full confidence knowing that you choose to do what you want to do. And this is something that breaks my heart. Every single person that, is suffering some kind of neurological compromise because of the mandates, they say, I only did it because I had to. The simple truth is you never did. And after going through this seminar, you will understand exactly why that is. But again, doesn't solve the problem with people that aren't by a location, because really the goal is to have these centers all across the world. But right now it's very limited on locations. So solution number two is to come out and to have a Symmetry Oasis experience. So when I said that I moved out to live in the jungles for a year, we literally took our life savings and bought a 47-acre missionary training facility in the jungles of the Dominican Republic. We have this humongous place that is literally as close to the Garden of Eden as you could possibly imagine. And so what we do there is take members who want to learn how to heal by hand and then also be healed themselves. And they get immersed into nature, very much like I was able to be, and then get the full benefit of healing. And then go into villages where we then serve the underserved, people that would never be able to afford chiropractic care. And they come by the hundreds to be healed by hand. And so within 1 week, someone can be fully trained how to heal by hand and then go back into their community to be a disciple of Christ and be able to heal not just their family. If their family, they just choose, but also their community. And it is an intensive week that is very hard for me to sum up, and I'll click on a video next which kind of gives some recaps on some people's experience at Symmetry Oasis. And then we make it so it's affordable. So we have payment plans available for people to take advantage of. So every single person can have this experience, because every single person right now is struggling with being part of the Walking Dead unless they can get their circuit breakers reset.
I think that I came into this looking for an opportunity to rest and to recharge. I've been in survival mode and know that I can't be the best person for my kids.
So when you hear like the words retreat, you think like spa and relaxing, but you find a different kind of nourishment.
This is an experience of a lifetime.
The place itself is the therapy.
This experience has been more than I could have possibly imagined.
This has been a very healing experience.
It's truly amazing.
But this place is so much more beautiful than any of the pictures or any of the videos have shown. It's like the sunrise yoga has been like probably like one of my favorite because it's beautiful. Like I'm rejuvenated and prepared to tackle my work week coming up.
Definitely life-changing.
This is an experience of a lifetime.
And then you just feel a little more relaxed and getting as many adjustments as you want, just like kind of put your body in line.
I can't wait to do it again.
I just feel like I'm physically stronger than when I came into it. I'm mentally stronger. And I have this drive to go out and serve. I'm excited to go back and be a better version of myself for my kids and for my students and for me.
So again, Symmetry Oasis experience, it's a week-long, all-inclusive experience. Everything is covered from the moment someone shows up to the moment they get back on their plane. And it is truly life-changing. Frequently asked questions. This is the most common one. Is this even legal? Excuse me. Yes. And this is where I have to get up on my soapbox a little bit. Because as of right now, medicine is operating as a church. They are operating with full rights to do whatever they want without consequences and to base their recommendations on belief systems. And it is illegal that they are doing that because they are operating hand in hand with government, and there needs to be a clear separation between church and state. And that is one legal battle I'm continuing to move forward towards here in Washington State, because what they are doing is illegal. And the way that I am able to train people to be able to heal by hand, to do a chiropractic reset, is under a church model in the name of Christ, which is Christ is to heal by hand, chiropractic. So yes, it is 100% legal. It has been formulated by a constitutional lawyer. It's been set up that way. It is international nonprofit status. And with that being said, every donation, every membership, all of that is tax deductible because it is a nonprofit and it is within that legal scope. So the second question that I have is it safe? Safe and effective, but I almost had to leave that out because that phrase actually is not even true anymore, right? How many times do you hear the COVID vaccine safe and effective, safe and effective doing what exactly? It's because tons of people have had interactions with it, and tons of people died, and it doesn't prevent the spread of COVID. So I almost didn't say safe, but as far as safety, as far as are you going to hurt anybody? And I can say definitively now, I've trained a number of people here in our location in Arlington how to do this safely and very, very gently. And what I've noticed is, although it took me 8 years of chiropractic college, I actually didn't go to school for 8 years for chiropractic college. I went to 4 years for undergrad, and then basically 2.5 years. Chiropractic college is the same as med school, so I learned how to be a medical doctor. And then I learned how to adjust, and the adjustment time, really, we only perform 250 adjustments before we graduate. Actually, right now, some chiropractic colleges don't even require a doctor of chiropractic, to perform an adjustment. Chiropractic colleges during COVID, they didn't adjust anybody. Chiropractic colleges in Europe, they don't adjust anybody. I can say with absolute confidence, the people that we trained are better adjusters, neurospinal circuit breaker resetters, than doctors coming out of chiropractic college. And which will jump at the very bottom, like, is will I be a doctor? No, you're not gonna be a doctor. You don't need to be a doctor. We don't need more doctors. We spend $1 in $7 on medical care in the United States. We're the sickest nation in the world. What we need is more people that can heal by hand, more people that follow Christ's example. And is this even possible to accomplish in 1 week? It absolutely was. And in fact, when I first started this mission centers, I thought it would take people a year to learn, because I'm used to hiring doctors out of chiropractic college and then having them be so difficult to train. What I found is that training that they receive, that $200,000 to $300,000 they spend on school, does not serve them. In fact, it actually puts detriment on them, which is really should be frustrating to those people that have made the investment in higher education, because it is not adding. The investment is not worth the money because it doesn't prepare them to be able to heal by hand. So every single person that comes through our program is can identify where the circuit breakers are blown, can safely reset them. And then the goal is to be able to then train other people to do the same thing and not try to be a doctor. We don't need more doctors. So if you're ready to be a member, this is what you get with becoming a member of a mission center. Is you get our fully compliant seminar. This was $1,000 program, and with that you get legal certainty and understanding. Second part, you get a 30-minute consultation with me, and during this consultation you can ask whatever questions you have. But really what I would say if you have goals, whether it's from movement or connection with loved ones or family members, or just kind of uh, like outcome of like, I really have always wanted to do this with my life. If you have those kind of goals, I would say have those goals ready for me, because really that's where I can be the most value for you, is helping to define the goals and then having a plan to get to those goals. And so you get a half an hour with me. It's a $200 value. I charge $400 an hour for my time. And then number 3 is you get lifetime access to all the neuro hacks with the Fog to Fire and our other series, audiobook series. And then the fourth part, if needed, is you get religious vaccines and mass exemption. This total value is $1,250. But you've now sat on this webinar for almost an hour, and so we're not charging the $1,250. And so for today, if you would like to become a member, or if you're interested in finding out more about Symmetry Oasis, for a $200 donation, you get the lifetime access to the fully compliant seminar. You get the 30-minute consultation with me, which again, if you're interested in the Symmetry Oasis experience, I can answer all the questions about that experience. You get the lifetime access to the neurohacks, and again, the religious vaccine and mask exemptions. But more importantly, you get to become part of a member of our movement, because right now there are, in my opinion, 2 groups of people. They are people that are followers of Christ, and whether they know it or not. When I say that, I'm not saying someone that says some prayer that says they're going to get into heaven. What I'm saying is that there are people that are literally following in Christ's example, whether they know it or not. And then there's people that are following the Church of Medicine. And those people, if you look around, are the walking dead. And for me, I had to go to pretty drastic extremes in my life in order to move from the walking dead to having a life of abundance. And a little bit of my backstory of how I got started on this journey is I grew up in Snohomish. I lived in a trailer with my 3 other brothers, and I had both my parents worked really hard, but they struggled with addiction, and we were poor, and I didn't have dinner, a good amount of times poor. But we always played outside, and we didn't know any different. And then the summer before my junior year of high school, I was going to my friend's house, and he was driving. I was a passenger, ends up gunning it, losing control, hits the embankment. He didn't have his seatbelt on. I did. We went into a roll. And when we rolled, he flew out of his seat. I grabbed a hold of him, which then pushed me out of the top part of my seatbelt. I went through the side window, hit my face into the ground, and got severe brain damage. And then afterwards, I walked with a pretty noticeable limp. Part of my face was paralyzed, and I had severe muscle spasms, headaches. And of course, my parents did what parents do, is they took me to my medical doctor, and then I got put on pain pills and muscle relaxers. And I spent the next year walking with a limp, such severe memory that I could not even, if we started a conversation, I wouldn't know by the end of the conversation who you were or what we talked about. And I was just in a status of, every night I would lay in bed and just contemplate, unable to sleep, thinking like, if this is the way the rest of my life is going to be, like, is that life even worth living? And that would be my thought every single night, until somebody said, why don't you go to a chiropractor? And at this point, again, I'm considering suicide on a pretty regular basis. I'm like, well, why not? At that point, I'm like, they're not real doctors. Like, why would I? But again, why not? And then after going that first time, I regained hope that I could have a normal life. So at 41 years old, in a couple weeks, I run marathons now. I have 3 kids that I play hard with. I am now a person that has been able to give a significant amount. I've helped build parks. I built splash pads. I built, did renovated community centers. I built $1 million businesses, and I've been very successful and blessed. And then the pandemic hit, and the whole world crumbled again as I watched all my family members that I cared about turn into this status that I remember living through when I was a child, of this walking dead, miserable, but hopeless status. And if more people knew how to do what I do now, then what would the world look like? If you could simply say, hey, lay down, and then reset the circuit breakers, you could give someone hope by reconnecting their brain back in the body. You could take back power in your family because you don't have to worry about your child's ear infections, because you know if you reset the circuit breakers, their ears are going to drain. Your kid that is struggling with asthma, you can immediately open up their bronchioles, which we did in our clinic when we would measure COVID patients' oxygen levels, and we adjust them, it immediately increases their oxygen levels. You could take back the thing that causes the fear of the unknown with your hands. So again, my name is Dr. Devin Brossard. Thank you for taking the time. Please feel free, send me an email, info@litup.global, if you have any other questions. Otherwise, there'll be a button right below. And if you'd like to make the $200 donation, then that can get you scheduled for our consultation, and then we can take the next steps. Thank you again, and talk to you soon.